First off, I run 3 copies of Hajin, the Winged Mayakashi. Although I don't really understand the whole winged aspect of it, but okay. Anyways, Hajin, whenever it's a normal or special summon, you can special summon a Mayakashi monster from your deck, except itself. Which is very good because basically grabs you a copy of Daki or Yuki Musume. Now, Daki is very important because whenever a Mayakashi monster is special summoned from the extra deck while this card is in your graveyard, you can special summon it from the grave. Oh, and that's not once per turn at all. So every time you link summon into a Mayakashi, you can summon it right out, which is definitely really good. So you can just keep on climbing. So Daki is just very, very good. And there's 3 Mayakashi Link monsters, so it's very easy to get into the Link 4. Yuki Musume, if you control a Mayakashi monster other than Yuki Musume, which you only run once, so that's not going to come up, you can special summon it from the hand. So let's say, for example, you have Yuki and Hajin in hand. You normal the Hajin, special the Daki, then special the Yuki Musume for hand. Honestly, these are the only Mayakashi monsters you run, because the other Mayakashi monsters just aren't really good, and this right here is basically all you need. Now, I do run an adventure engine in this, so originally I was trying to go for like a Mayakashi zombie build, but the zombie build just wasn't very good. And honestly, Mayakashis don't really work with the zombie engine. But with the adventure engine, it works much better because if you don't use the effect of Hajin, you got the adventure engine to fall back on. So that's definitely very good. Also run 2 Fenrir and 3 Ash for my hand trap. Moving on to the spells, I run 3 copies of Mayakashi Return. It adds a Mayakashi card from deck, or sends it to the graveyard, but most oftentimes you're going to add it to the deck. Unless it's Daki, you can probably send Daki to the grave. So you definitely want to run that. Of course, the adventure engine with 3 rights, 1 faithful, and 1 Draco back. Now for consistency, I run 3 copies of Small World and 3 copies of Pod Prosperity. Definitely helps out with the consistency of this deck. And for extending, I got Monster Reborn and Zombie Reborn. Also run the 1-for-1 for the for Yuki Musume, just in case you don't open it or have a way to get to it. And the Hajin is also a level 1 as well. So let's say, for example, you have Hajin in your hand and you have the adventure engine, but you don't have anything else. You can use the 1-for-1, pitch the Hajin, then special summon another one from your deck, which will then allow you to use the Hajin summon effect without the restriction of the adventure engine. Also run 1 Called by the Grave, because like every deck, you don't want to get hand trapped. Moving on to traps, we have 3 copies of a Masterful Shiranui Sakura. Basically, you contribute a Mayakashi or Shiranui Synchro or Link monster, and neither player can special summon monsters from the hand, deck, or extra deck for the rest of this turn. Yeah, it's basically Scythe for Mayakashis. A Mayakashi Link monster is very easy to get out, so this deck is definitely not a deck you want to underestimate, because if you can pop off with it, your opponent's not going to have a good time. And also run 3 Imperm. Moving on to the links, I run 3 copies of the Link 2. The effects for the most part don't really matter too much because their effects aren't really the greatest, especially for the Ice Mayakashi. You can basically ignore its effect. It very rarely comes up. You may want it because it's a Link 2 Mayakashi that you can easily get into for the trap. I also run 2 copies of the Icicle Mayakashi. I should also note that you can only control 1 of each, so if you have one Ice Mayakashi, you can go into the Icicle Mayakashi, but you can't have 2 of like the ice or 2 of the icicle. But that doesn't really come up too often. And if this card is special summoned, you can target 1 effect monster your opponent controls, and negate its effects. You can also banish this card from your graveyard to special summon one of your zombie synchro monsters that is banished or in the graveyard. The secondary effect is going to come up since we don't play any of the synchros, because the synchros aren't really all that great. But the first effect tonight and can come up situationally. Also run 2 copies of the Absolute Zero. Absolute Zero is kind of weird. It's not bad, but I can't really say it's the best either. Basically, if your opponent activates a monster effect in the graveyard, or summons a monster from the graveyard, you target one of the fire set monster on the field, change its attack to 0, and if you do, negate its effects, which comes up situationally, so if your opponent reborns, you can negate a monster effect. It's very weird. I run 2 copies of Vampire Sucker, because it's still zombies, so Sucker and the Vampire Fascinator are definitely going to be very helpful for this deck. Also run the 1 Link Karibo and the 1 Relinquished Anima. Link Karibo for going first if we need it, and Anima for going second if we need it. Of course, also run a Nightmare Unicorn, Apollosa, and an Access Code to round out the extra deck. Let me know what you think of Mayakashi. Do you think this deck has some potential? Let me know in the comments, and I'll see you in the next video I make. Bye.